Hey guys, Ted from Nerdarchy here, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with
Nerdarchist Dave.
And today we're going to talk about Run Away! Run Away! Jump down in the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So we have a viewer suggestion about a video today.
Indeed. Vincent sent us an email, as can you, nerdarchy@gmail.com, and he wants to know how do you not punish players for retreating or running away in combat?
Hey, just don't do it. Done. Boom.
Well, it's not always, cut and dry like that. Number one, there's, well, why are the players running? Did the dice treat them poorly? Are they rolling bad and you're rolling crits all the time? And, they just don't think they're going to be able to survive? Is it a combat where, it's an uneven playing field? That they had a random encounter and they're up against something that they have no ability to fight, and before weapons are even drawn, they're like, nope, we're cutting out. Was it something that you were already engaged, you aren't certain whether you're going to be able to make it or not, but you're going to leave? So there's possible other situations out there as well. So that's the player's decision. You then have to look at what is the mentality of whatever the players are fighting. Is it a mindless beast that's hungry and came after them for food? Well, then it's probably going to pursue. Is it a haughty dragon that's like, these mortals are so beneath me, I'm not going to leave my lair to chase after them. I'll send my minions to kill them later. And then again, there's anywhere in between. So what's your nuance? What's going on?
Right. So, you're right. There's so many things you could go with. Like, is the creature territorial, and it's satisfied once you've been driven from its territory. Right. Also, there's nothing that has to be said that failure equals death. Like, they could be captured instead of eaten or killed.
And that could literally be, okay, well, you guys have been captured. We're going to end the session here. And, next session we start off and you guys have to do a jailbreak, fun. That's always a way to go. But Vincent wants to know, like, all right, well, how do you handle if the enemy are loaded up with bow and arrows and the players have varying speeds over open terrain? Do they just get peppered until they die? Do the players have to make, some kind of, well, who becomes the sacrifice that everybody else can get away? What kind of steps should he as the DM do to avoid, the TPK? What happens if the monster is literally faster than the players?
Think about these things before you make the encounters. Like, if it's a concern, right?
Right.
If you care about this, like, the monsters didn't just show up at your table. They're like, guys, we're playing the game, I'm running the game, and the dragon showed up. I'm so sorry. It's probably going to eat one of you. I had no control. I don't know what happened. It got away from me. Like, it just, like, the book flew open and it flew out. I don't know. Like, this is really a non-issue, in my opinion. Like, this can't literally happen unless you made it happen.
Yeah. As the DM, you are completely, you are in complete control of the game.
You're a god. Well, no, you set the terrain. You put the monsters there. You put the encounter there. So if you're saying all these bad things happen, what do I do? Well, I don't know. Maybe think about that before you wrote the encounter.
All right, let's take it's open terrain. And the orcs that they're fighting, they've got longbows, and they have no desire to give chase, but they're gonna pepper them with arrows. All right, go into narration, and say that the ground at your feet begins to get littered with arrows, and as you jerk and jive, as you run, arrows thunk into the ground everywhere. Find out what the status of everyone's health is. Have someone get a couple points of damage as arrows, nick into them or, stab into them. Feel free to let them get away with taking some extra damage because that actually happened. If you feel that, oh well, it's not open terrain and there's some place, all right, change the narration. You're ducking and jiving around the trees and down the riverbank until you manage to get to the deep enough water that you submerge yourself and swim. With the current speeding you along. Make up what's going to be thematic and drive the point home that they were soundly defeated, but yet they still get away. If somebody is already unconscious, then that means, one or more people are going to be burdened by that, or that player's going to have to be kidnapped. And then, well, you figure out what happens next. This is a game where we constantly have to deal with the randomness of dice rolling. And sometimes those dice rollings are going to go well for one side and not so well for the other side. And when that happens to be good for the DM and bad for the players, it can change the scope of combat, but it doesn't need to change the outcome of your game, just how you go about getting to that end result.
First of all, you have to decide, like, how do you run your game, right? So, for instance, you plan an encounter and everything, you figure this is the right encounter for the party, this is going to be okay, and things just go poorly. Bad dice rolls happen, whatever. Bad choices are made, and then they decide that they're going to flee. So one is they made the decision to flee. Now you have to decide as the GM what the opposition will decide in turn, right? Whether it's pursue, whether it's I don't care, whatever. So at this point, and also like you have to decide too, like how do I feel about the lethality of my game? Like whatever happens, happens. Like personally, I roll my dice up front, so if you get killed, you're gonna know. Like you're gonna see, oh, he rolled a 20, and this is the damage. I don't track hit points. You track hit points. I just tell everybody, look, let me know when you're dead. We'll take it from there. Yeah, so everyone has a different way of doing things, but you as the GM can have all kinds of crazy things happen if you feel it necessary to intervene. The problem is if you do this too often, though, the players will feel like their choices really don't matter. So that being said, you could have them running away. A portal opens up, they fall through it, so they're able to get away. You could have someone save them. Which is also never particularly great. And there's different ways of doing that, whether it's they come in and fight the monsters for the players, whether they assist, or whether they teleport them out or something along those lines. You could have the ground collapse from underneath them, and now they're in the Underdark. They're away from the monsters, but they have new problems. Like Ted said, swept down the river would be another way. Look at Lord of the Rings when the eagles come and swoop them away and carry them off. These are all things that could happen, and hopefully they lead to new adventures and fun things. Not that they just got away, right? Not that they just circumnavigate this encounter. Hopefully it will add to the narrative of the story that's being told, and maybe it completely changes it. Or maybe they get captured. Maybe they get killed, and now their spirits go on an adventure to try and reclaim their physical forms and come back to life.
Yeah, there was a third edition book that literally that's what it was about. And Ghostwalk, yeah, and it was a campaign setting for how to play adventurers who were dead, and I loved the idea so much that I actually I ran it for a little while, and I thought it was a really enjoyable game, and you could literally just rip the mechanics right, or rip the idea. You don't even need mechanics right out, and play it. Okay, you guys run away, and you're pursued, and one by one, you are cut down and defeated. And don't end the session, but give a nice dramatic pause. Let the idea sink in. As one by one the players are dropped and run through. Okay, that's 2 failed death saves for your character. That's 2 failed death saves for your character. And then before it gets really around to it, all right, they drive their sword in again just to make sure that you're not getting up. All right, after the nice dramatic pause, all right, you find yourself in a completely alien field, and as you look upon your companions, they're transparent and, for lack of a better word, ghost-like. Find something and really narrate what's going on, and you give them a quest. Whether it be 1 session, 5 sessions, to make it back to being alive. And perhaps coming back alive will actually, the characters will be weaker, maybe they'll be stronger, maybe their spirits have been intensified by being dead, maybe they've drained, whatever it is that you want to do as a punishment for dying. They ran away from something they should have defeated. It's your game. It's however you want to run it. For me, I ran the Ghost Walk as a way of saying, okay, you're gonna spend time dead. You're gonna come back into your new bodies, and the goal is to go avenge those who were more powerful than you to beat you. Once that was over, campaign was done.
Yeah, same thing. You could wake up in front of the gods. You could be whisked away by a god, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a better situation either. Like that they find themselves in, so it doesn't feel like you just saved them.
Mm-hmm.
Like you saved them, but now things are even shittier than they were before.
Perfect idea. All right, you find yourself in front of the gods. They are disappointed at your retreat. You must now replay this encounter over and over until you succeed.
I don't know if it's a perfect solution, but it's a solution. But there's a ton of stuff that like the orc arrows that they're being peppered with could have been poisoned. It's a sleep poison. Again, you can capture them. You can do different things. Death is just one of the options, and if sometimes you might want to just let some characters die too. Like he brought up the idea of one character is slower than everyone else. Well, the old joke. You don't have to outrun the bear. Just the guy slower than you. So this is the guy next to you. So there's definitely different ways you can do it. It's just a matter of how do you want it to play a part in your game. And here's the thing. You don't want to punish your players for running away, because then they'll never do it again. So you have to find a way that it's an option for them in the game. Otherwise, you basically have eliminated one solution to a problem that will never get used again.
Right.
If every time it's used, there's a penalty for it. There shouldn't. I mean, there can be, but there doesn't have to be a penalty for retreat. Look at the Lord of the Rings books. That's all they did was run away. It's like a trilogy of them running away until they finally fight at the end, and it's because they have nowhere else to go.
They fight in the Mines of Moria because they're literally cornered, and then they fight at the end. But other than that, yeah, they're
even when they fight, they're fighting a retreat.
That's true.
Like they're always running away. So it's great. That's great if your players are doing that in your game. It means they're thinking about the story and their characters as people would actually think, and not like it's just a game, right? They're not gamifying the experience if they're willing to run away more often than not. They're like, they care about their characters, and people who care about themselves are like, oh, I can have someone shoot and stab me, or I can try and be somewhere else. Well, I think it's a better idea to try and be somewhere else.
Well, as we said in the other video, Miyagi's best defense is no be there. So,
correct.
if you aren't where they can hurt you, then you're not going to die.
Yeah, so there's many solutions to this, but I know where you'll find some more. Down in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can hang out with us over on Facebook.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.